Myself and Michael Verney now. We're looking at the best young hopes in hurling for the 2020 championship. Brought to you by 65 Hurls. Go to 65hurls.com to get your sticks, whether it's now or in the new year. Michael Verney, where do we start off with the best young hurler?
Well, I tell you what, the only thing I will say is this a lot like different other years where, young lads will be coming in the summer and it's top of the ground and they're generally lighter, quicker players. It's a lot more difficult for a young player to make an impact in this championship. Will this be the championship where we say, they'll go with the tried and tested, they'll go with the lads that have their strength and conditioning done for the last 4 or 5 years? Is that more likely this year, or what do you think?
I would say for a lot of young lads coming in the first time, they're probably not used to that sort of physical, getting hit as hard as they like underage. The guys that are going to go on and probably excel at senior level, vast majority of them, physically it's easy enough for them at underage level, and then they come into senior and all of a sudden they're getting hit from different directions and they're getting their cages rattled. That sort of thing when you get hit for the first time by a lad who's much bigger than you and it rattles you to your core and you're thinking maybe twice about getting stuck in again. So if you go into the winter now and you're thrown in at the deep end, there's a good chance you get gobbled up because there are slower conditions. The touch won't be as instant. So if you have to go for a second touch, the second touch is when you're getting tackled for sure. If you get a first touch away on the turn, that's when you probably can find a little bit of daylight to shoot from. So I think it is going to be tougher.
And the touch won't take you away, Shane, as well. The touch won't take you away from a fella in winter, whereas it could in summer. It probably will in summer championship.
Yeah. No, if you have a particularly good step, maybe you can actually unseat the defender and he'll be on the ground looking up at you and you're gone. So there will be occasions when that happens. But by and large, if the pitch is poor, it's very hard to hurl in wintry conditions if the pitches start to fail. Now, in general, we're going to be using the best fields in Ireland. We're going to be using Thurles, we're going to be using Croke Park, and so on. But the only thing is, even playing an All-Ireland semi-final in January at Semple Stadium a couple of years ago, the pitch was in a terrible state for the match. So, it could happen anywhere that a pitch is going to be in bits. The only thing is, because pitches were so idle for Munster in the summer, they've actually, and they're going to be idle for a few weeks now, there's probably never been a chance for fields to be in as good a condition as they are this year. Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, no, I would agree with you in fairness. And in fairness, all the Leinster Championship games are being played in Croke Park, so the best of conditions. Here's another one for you as well. Is it more likely that the best young hopes this year will be defenders rather than forwards? Because coming into defence now, you're probably less likely to be, skinned or really, really badly exposed. Where in summer conditions, you could have 60 yards in front of you and a lad could get a run on you. Whereas the forwards coming in now, I just think conditions are harder for forwards because generally a back is the bully and the forward is the one being bullied. And I think in these conditions, younger players are maybe more likely, particularly in attack, to find it harder than in defence.
Unless you're full back or something like that, because we know that a lot of ball is going to be lobbed into the square on a big man when teams have the luxury to do that. So if you're a full back and you're a newbie and you're against a grizzled adult, that could be quite tough. And I have a list made here of young players that I think can make an impact this year. You have a list there as well. And if I'm trying to look at the defenders I have here, I have Darren Morrissey, who was the minor captain for Galway a couple of years ago. He looks like a really good young player. He did well in the championship this year, in the Galway Club Championship. He could make an impact. What other young guys do I have that are playing in defence? Maybe Pádraig Delaney with Laois. From Tipperary point of view, maybe Morgan there, Craig Morgan. He could be a guy that could make an impact. Callum Lyons, does he qualify as a young hope or not? Well, he would have had injuries and maybe he hasn't played enough over the years he's played so few over the last couple of years because of injuries that maybe we could consider him. Conor Prunty's a big injury out for Waterford. You'd probably put him in the same bracket. But in general, it's not really defenders that we're talking about here, so you might have a point. In an overall sense, are we nearly dismissing the impact that young players could have this year because it possibly won't suit them?
It's an interesting one. I just think from a defender's point of view, you're far more likely to, or less likely to get skint in these conditions than you could in the summertime. And from a forward's point of view, particularly a young forward, I just think it's hard. It's going to be harder to make an impact. In saying that, I think we've got an impressive cast to pick from, and an impressive cast to think of who we think are the best hopes are going to be, and probably just even starting in Munster. Like looking at Cork, it's three forwards. It's three forwards we've come up with, and maybe that's not a surprise given the wealth of forwards that are in Cork. But Brian Turnbull, Alan Connolly and Shane Barrett are the three that would stand out. Now, I didn't get a full look at the Cork County final, and I know you did, so you might be able to give me a bit more information on Alan Connolly and Shane Barrett.
Well, Alan Connolly's the one that's still, like, Shane Barrett's good talent, but like Alan Connolly, the only thing about him is he's so slight, it might be a bit soon for him, and it might be a case of there's longer term planning with him. But my God, he was just excellent against Glen Rovers. He'll get the ball, he'll turn, he'll go at you. He's got skill, he's got speed, he can take frees. There's pretty much, he's kind of ticking all the boxes there. But I think physically he might get blown out of it, and that's no slight on him. That's just an age thing, that's a size thing. Different lads take different amounts of time to get up to that physical level. Not everyone comes in as Conor Whelan, for example, ready to go at 18 or 19 years of age, whatever it might be. So I think they're definitely ones. Brian Turnbull, I'm sure he's fully over his cruciate at this stage. Again, we wouldn't have seen him play for months. I didn't see Douglas playing in the Cork Championship this year, but maybe he's put on a bit of size as well, and he could be ready to go. But I'd be thinking, if I'm Kieran Kingston and I had the options there, would I be looking at using Brian Turnbull, or would I be using maybe Aidan Walsh, who's been kind of in and out of the team at different times and sometimes subbed, sometimes not. So I don't know, but I hear you for all the same. Like, Tipperary would have and should have the best kind of cast of young players coming through, or potentially, because Liam Cahill delivered a minor a couple of years ago. He delivered an under-21 All-Ireland and then an under-20 All-Ireland again last year. So if any team is going to have players coming through, it is the All-Ireland champions. You would have to say that. And the guys that are standing out to me is Ger Brown. Again, I said this before, I think he could be hurler of the year within the next 5 years, but I also think, depending on how he goes, he could go the other direction, not even beyond the panel. So we'll just see that. I'd say a lot of that's in his own head and how he kind of deals, and how Liam Sheedy brings him through the next few years. I think he's a top of the turf sort of a player, so I'm not necessarily sure that winter will kind of be favourable for him. Jake Morris hat-trick against Thurles during the summer there to knock them out of the Tip Championship. But then again, he played 2 years ago for Tipperary, so does he count as a young hope? He is a young player, but remember he hit the post against Clare in the 2018 Championship. Then Dylan Quirk, he's a guy that we know had a heart issue, and he missed out on like a season and a half there, give or take. But he was really impressive in the league, especially against Waterford when he got man of the match that day. Brian McGrath is one I'm very interested in seeing, because he played full back on that team for Liam Cahill under 21 a couple of years ago. I don't think full back is necessarily a position where he can launch his inter-county career. I think he's better suited a bit further out the field with Lockmore in and around the kind of middle eight. I think he could, obviously he's not a player blessed massively with speed, but neither is Noel. He's really good on the ball and obviously very intelligent. And maybe Brian is something who could be moulded in that sort of way. Again, whether it'll happen this winter, I'm not sure. What do you make of that cast of players?
Yeah, I think Brian McGrath is an interesting one, because in the best way possible, I think he's a real dogged type of a player. I think he's really willing to get stuck in and do that kind of hard stuff, and I think that will be suited towards wintry conditions. I think Craig Morgan is an interesting one. We were both in Neen earlier this year or late last year. I think it could have been actually late last year, and he probably made his Tipperary senior debut. Now, it was difficult conditions, and I don't know, were they long back from their team holiday and had they done much training, but he was, he played okay that day. I've seen him play with Kilruane a good few times. He's very, very good on the ball. He's a dogged enough kind of defender as well. I think he's a good option to have potentially as probably maybe more as a cornerback, maybe than a wing back with Tipperary at the moment. I think he's interesting one. Ger Brown and Jake Morris are more top of the ground, I think, so they'll probably will have an impact, but I would probably see a both bit off the bench again this year. Just looking at some of the other counties in Munster then, with Clare, you probably have the likes of Ryan Taylor. Dermot Ryan is on the scene a couple of years now. Dermot Ryan was actually very good that day that Tip played Clare in that co-op Munster Superstores game that we were at. I think he got a couple of points and then went off. I think he actually went off injured, but he's been a good prospect out around the half-hour line midfield.
They need him too, because if Podge Collins, who also played in that game, was marked by Craig Morgan, and actually Collins played well that day, if he's not involved, which we know he isn't, Ryan Taylor or someone like that will have to step up. And just like Taylor got a lot of game time through the league. Maybe to some degree Brian Lohan has been planning to bring these young players through, as everyone should. Like, he scored a goal against Kilkenny down at Nolan Park, so you can't dismiss that. He played against Dublin in that heavy victory, but didn't actually score, and also scored a couple of points against Wexford, which is certainly not to be sniffed at as well. So he has kind of laid down a small bit of a marker to say, pick me.
Yeah, the interesting thing about a lot of these guys that we've talked about, like, none of these are guaranteed starters when we go down through any of them. They're definitely not. But if you move on to the Limerick side, like Aaron Costello, particularly with Richie English only on the comeback trail now, and we're not sure, John Kiley says he'll be back over the coming months. So, like, what's that? The coming months could be next January or February. So
will he hit the ground running? You don't know either. You know, it might take him 6 months to get right.
Yeah, Mike Casey's out as well. So that's 2 vacancies in the full back line. Maybe Dan Morrissey will come back and there's only 1 vacancy. But Aaron Costello was good. He played well in that game against Galway in the Gaelic grounds earlier on this year. He was the other corner. And, like, he's obviously raw enough because he wouldn't have that much experience at that level. But providing, like, he's been going well in training and had a decent club campaign, he's probably the most likely of what we've talked about so far that will actually be starting in championship for a really, really high profile county. So I think there's a fair chance of him emerging as one of the best young hopes. And on the other side of that, with the defensive injuries that they have, Jerome Boylan is obviously on the panel as well, and there's going to be chances for some of these guys, as we talked about in separate videos. Cornerbacks and players in the full back line is very kind of specialised, and if you can play there, like, there's not that many people that can. So if you can play there, he's probably going to get a chance there as well. So those guys, and again, they're two defenders, and there maybe be, not saying there's less pressure on a defender, but, like, you can, if you're a forward and 3 balls come into you and you don't win any of them, you're nearly looking at the line as a young player. As a defender, you could spoil 3 balls and you could be getting a roar and your teammates would be absolutely delighted and, oh jeez, he's doing great, he's getting stuck in. So it's a different kind of a scenario there, but they're both going to get, by all accounts, they're both going to get a bit of game time, I'd say, with Limerick. Aaron Costello in particular.
Yeah, he's definitely impressed, but, like, these are games where Limerick are on top and the rest of their team is fully fit and out there and flying it, and that is the perfect situation to bring in a young player. You don't want them with, you don't want a load of young players in there all at the one time looking around to see who's the leader here. It'd be tough to throw the 2 of them in at the one time, and both of them, like, they both are good players, Jerome Boylan and Aaron Costello, but they're both quite young, as obviously this video is about. But the flip side, throwing them in for Richie English and Mike Casey, who are 2 big adults, very filled out, used to all occasions, nothing will phase them. If you put a big lad in on them, I don't think either of them would be overly concerned. Obviously Mike Casey has marked everyone from Conor Callahan to Johnny Glynn to whoever you name them, and come out relatively at a minimum 50-50 breaking even. Richie English has been really, really good. I think is he underrated? I'm not sure. I think people do think he's a really, really good player. So if you're going to throw in one or both of these guys, it's a different deal. And also if they, let's say they get past Clare playing against Tipperary, it's different gravy if you're under pressure against Tipperary and you've got Seamus Callanan on you 1 minute and you've got John McGrath in the next and then Bubbles in. Different things, with Bonner Maher maybe even throwing full forward or corner forward. You're going to have different things thrown at you, so I think it would be tough for them. No more than at the other end of the field, if Darren O'Connell or Brian Ryan is thrown in for Tipperary or for Limerick, it's going to be tough for them to make an impact in what could be dirty out conditions.
Yeah, just on like from John Kiley's point of view, I'd say when COVID hit and he knew that Richie English was going to be out for the championship, obviously, I'm sure, like, the likes of Aaron Costello, Jerome Boylan would have smelt an opportunity, and that they would have really, really gone hard under S&C during that time to make sure that if it was a winter championship that they'd be up to it. So it'd be interesting to see Aaron Costello, whether he's even filled out a bit, because not saying he's light or anything, but he's a relatively young player, so has a different type of a frame. So it'd be interesting to see if he's maybe a bit more robust than he was before COVID hit. Just on Waterford then as well, we weren't blessed with, like, really, really young hopes. Like Callum Lyons was a player you mentioned. He's probably 23 or 24 at this stage, but maybe hasn't done that much hurling at Waterford due to injury. Jack Fagan is probably of a similar age, the former Meath player, but again, he's only just coming on the county scene, haven't been called up. He's an interesting one. He's a good paw on him as well, so he's one that can make an impact. Anyone else in Waterford there, like, you're kind of more looking at that under 21 All-Ireland winning team of a couple of years ago, aren't you?
And they're all probably hitting 24, 25. Now maybe somebody is slipping through the cracks here, but there's no one else absolutely bashing me over the head saying I'm going to be the player that steps up here. I think they do have good players, but maybe not someone who's going to be at the very top of this list that's going to make that impact this year. Like Desi Hutchinson, he's probably 23 or 24. We both talked ad nauseum nearly at this stage about how he could make an impact, but remains to be seen. What about Kilkenny? I mean, if you look at the different games over the league, Kieran Wallace has gotten plenty of chances. I remember seeing him down against Clare that day, so he's definitely in Cody's thoughts. Tommy Walsh of Tullaroan, young Tommy Walsh that is, of course, he's played championship the last couple of years. Remember scoring a great point from cornerback against Dublin in the 2019 Leinster Championship, and he was really good in the Club All-Ireland intermediate final for Tullaroan against Declan Dalton. Now Dalton got a couple of goals, and like, he will put the ball in the net if you put the ball in his hand. He's a really good striker. Owen Cody's another guy. I think you heard reports from scoring 3-5 against Clare in a recent challenge match as well. So Kilkenny have a couple of guys there, and especially with Adrian Mullen having been out for so long, we don't know if he'll be right for the championship. It's important that they have another couple of guys come through.
Definitely, and the fact that Ballyhale have won back-to-back All-Irelands and then have gone and won another Kilkenny title, their third in a row, with a lot of young guys involved. Owen Cody's definitely one that stands out for me. I think he scored 3-5 in a recent challenge game against Clare and seems to be really, really putting his hand up. Billy Ryan, while on the scene a couple of years, hasn't really made his stamp probably at championship level, so he's another kind of young guy that'll be vying for a place. Richie Lahey is around a couple of years, but again, he's still quite young. John Donnelly the same. They've all been around a couple of years. And Mossy Keown, who played a lot in 2018 and was very, very good when they won the league, is another guy that could come back in there. They have a lot of guys around that age, around 21 or 22, that have quite a good bit of experience for their age. So it just kind of shows Cody has definitely developed a good squad over the last couple of years, and I think Ballyhale's exploits will definitely help a lot of those guys. Just on Galway then, if you're looking at other counties in the Leinster Championship, like TJ Brennan was one guy that played a good bit during the league in defence and was quite good at cornerback, left-handed hurler. And Ja Mannion is a guy who's around the squad and has absolutely blistering pace. But again, when you're talking about guys which is more likely to make an impact in this championship, a guy that doesn't have that much experience, that has blistering pace in attack, or a lad who's maybe a bit more robust and plays in defence, I think it's the defender that's far more likely to have the impact this year. But next year will be completely different. But this is, like, if you've ever talked about horses for courses, and particularly with young guys, it will be this year. A lot of managers will be thinking, is he ready for the cut and thrust of this with the conditions and how dogged it's going to be?
Yeah. Darren Morrissey, I think, could step up in the cornerback line. We don't know who's going to play fullback. Is Dahi going to be right? Is Fintan Burke going to play there? Is Groan McInerney going to play there? Shane O'Neill, there's always a chance. He's not 100% sure yet. He's probably waiting to see what way things fall. Evan Nyland, I kind of mentioned him before. I think he was really good against Tipperary in the league, and if I remember correctly, he knocked over frees for sport. And Joe Canning has talked in his pre-championship interview about being 32 now and not sure on how long he has left, and he's obviously suffered a lot of injuries, and if such a crucial player goes down and if your main free taker goes down, maybe they'll go with Jason Flynn, but maybe they'll go with Evan Nyland too. I mean, Conor Cooney's another option.
Took frees during the league, Shane, which was a big one, and
impressed during similar scuttery conditions. So I mean, he could be like
that is it, and that's what lads are going to be saying all winter. You mentioned in a previous show about the type of ball maybe going to a lad and a scuttery owl ball. That is exactly the sort of conversations that we'll be having there. Will you ever drive the ball and don't be scuttering it in? That's the conversations that lads will have.
Is there any other quintessential hurling term? I mean, there's plenty in football, and most sports have their own vernacular, but other than scuttery, we all know what a cornerback is called, but the right type of cornerback, but we can't say that because it's obviously not very PC.
a dirty owl ball, a miserable owl ball in, there'll be a lot of boys delivering kind of owl ambulance passes. We used to always get that one when we were younger as well, because it was awful here, particularly in football, and you could end up in an ambulance as a result of it.
We would have said a hospital pass, actually.
Yeah, we used to have ambulance pass as well. It was a bit more than the hospital. So the hospital would imply that you were able to be driven to the hospital by mother or father or parent or guardian or whoever. The ambulance would suggest that it was very bad. You were wrote off and had to be totally carried off.
Yeah, neither particularly good. What about in Wexford there? I think Joe O'Connor has started to lay down a bit of a claim in the back line. And he's a converted forward who's really comfortable carrying the ball up the field. And Wexford were doing it during the league, so there's no reason they can't do it in November.
100%, yeah. As you say, he has like a lot of their players, like a lot of their defenders, they are converted forwards because Davy wants boys that are comfortable on the ball and going to be able to carry ball forward. I was chatting to him in an interview recently. He has a new kind of a coffee shack just between Rosslare and Wexford Town, and I asked him, I presume he really knew he was going to be asked about it, but I asked him about running into Liam Sheedy last year. That famous clip where Sheedy's absolutely wired to the moon at the end of the match, and Joe O'Connor runs into him, and Joe O'Connor bounces onto the ground off Sheedy, and Sheedy didn't look like he was ready for it or tensed up or anything like that. And kind of just Joe O'Connor said, it kind of definitely spurred him to go, and get his S&C done and make sure that he's up to the pace physically this year. He was probably a bit raw coming into that All-Ireland semi-final last year, but during the league I thought he looked brilliant. He did a really good job on someone from
Wally Walsh.
Wally Walsh, yeah, really, and that wouldn't have been a matchup that you'd think looked that good. It looked definitely to favour Wally, but funny enough, they were trying to put Wally on the back foot and have him defending rather than attacking, and it worked in fairness. But he's definitely one, and I think Ross Banville up front is another one. I watched him at the Wexford 20s last year and was very impressed, and he was Shelmaliers winning the Wexford title. They were more of some other parts, really balanced side, but he was the one that invariably did most of the damage up front. And I think Davy's kind of want has always been to extend the panel, get more lads that can offer something on match day. He's someone that I definitely think could, and I definitely think Joe O'Connor too, be it starting or be it off the bench.
Yeah, I think any manager these days has got to look at the opposition, and if they've got a forward who wants to roam out the field, you got to find someone who can mark them, that can punish them going the other way, to the point where Wally Walsh or Joe Canning or whoever is thinking, I'm not bringing this lad into my own half of the field, he's going to get a point off me. Because that as a forward, that would affect you, because you like the idea of, I'll drag someone who isn't a natural forward out the field, I get on ball, I'll then go up the field, I'll pop over my point or two and it'll be grand and everyone will say I'm great. Like, you don't want Joe Connor running at you going in the other direction. Obviously Burris Lee had the impact of Brendan Maher doing that throughout last year. Matt O'Hanlon has done it when he's played for Wexford. So I think all managers should be thinking that way. Like, if I'm Dublin and I have Chris Crummy, who's been putting the forwards during the league in 2020, but if I was thinking I'd put him on somebody who, let's say Joe Canning for example, and he's roaming the other end of the field, well, Chris Crummy can punish you going the other way too, so it sort of makes you think twice. So I think that's something, it's obviously a discussion for maybe a different...
It's a great development in the game as well, isn't it? Like, you love managers thinking outside the box. Like, a cornerback is no longer a cornerback anymore, particularly when you look at Wexford, and half-backs can score as much as half forwards now,
Sean
which is
Murphy
a great
as well, yeah, that's a perfect example. Right, Dublin then, I think Andrew Dunphy's got a bit of game time during the league. Ronan Hayes, he played in the championship last year. He's still a young player, and I think he's a guy with a good hand, good hurling. He could really...
He's a good prospect, Shane, yeah.
Well, Dublin need him to, because we've talked about it lots of times, that Dublin don't have enough of these sort of... Well, they don't have marquee forwards, really. And I mean, some of them are playing with the football team, so it's kind of unfortunate for them in that sort of sense. But the thing about Ronan Hayes...
Yeah, Shane, it's unfortunate they have nearly 1.5 million people and there's a couple of lads kicking football, yeah. It's unfortunate that they don't have a load of forwards.
Well, you check the number of adult players playing hurling in Dublin versus other counties and then come back to me. Sure, most of them up here are playing soccer or, God forbid, rugby. Jeez, don't send your kids to play rugby, whatever you do. Anyway, but just back to this. Ronan Hayes is the sort of lad, he's 6 foot, probably 2. He's got a bit of pace, he's got hurling, he has a good hand, and I think he could develop into a really top hurler in the next couple of years. He will be playing unless he's injured, as far as I would imagine he will play. So if Liam Rush is right, having the two of them in the full forward line, or maybe Conal Keaney will play in there as well, like, Dublin will probably be looking to snap ball close to goal and maybe You would hope Danny Sutcliffe can hit top form. You can hope maybe David Tracy and Paul Ryan and guys like this can also make an impact. Maybe Keane Boland, who's still relatively young, but probably we'd have seen more of him by now if it wasn't for so many injuries. So they have a certain amount of potential in that forward line, and I think Ronan Hayes, if he could sort of hit the levels that maybe he's capable of, because he's a player I do like, we'll see how he does get on, but that would be important. Donald Burke coming back, he's a guy who, I think he's a good free taker, he's a tasty hurler, he has scores in him. He impressed at times during the club championship as well. So they have a few players, probably not as many absolute stars coming through. But then again, to be fair, like we've gone through most of the teams at this stage, and there's no absolute obvious star for 2020 coming through, is there?
No, that's the great thing about it. There could be guys maybe a couple lads that we haven't mentioned that will come through, but I think the structure of the championship makes that a bit more difficult. There's not really a chance to experiment too much. Laois is definitely worth touching on, because I think Pádraig Delaney, the halfback, is big, strong fella for any young fella from the Harps. He's an awful lot of potential. He was very, very good against Dublin last year and performed with plenty of credit against Tip as well. And they obviously won the Joe McDonagh last year, so they've a bit of silverware behind them and are at the top table now, or just on the verges of the top table anyway. And will be that game against Dublin will be really interesting. He's one of their kind of real young guns to look up. And then at the other end of the field, Aaron Dunphy's been around maybe a couple of years, but he really probably announced himself against Dublin last year. Got a goal in that game. Was obviously sent off against Tip, so a bit of a sour kind of a finish to the year for him. But they have a couple of good young lads coming through as well, and obviously it'll be a couple of years away. But Derek McGrath's involved with a minor team at the moment that a lot of people think could get back to a Leinster final. They haven't won one since 1964, so they'll be keen to get back there. But a lot of players that we've listed there, but I'm not sure. I'd say you could count on probably two hands the amount out of about 30 players there that are actually going to start for their team. So who would you say is the best young hope across them all? Who is the name most likely to spring out from all of those and make an impact this year?
I think that Diarmuid Ryan could make an impact for Clare. The flip side is Limerick could give them a bit of a tidy beating, because and that's not because, like, Clare at full strength should give them a decent game, even though they got annihilated last year when they played them in the Munster Championship. But I think Diarmuid Ryan could make an impact. I expect him to play, assuming he's fit. I think like Jake Morris has probably been on the scene a bit too long to really put him at the, like, even though his age profile might be similar, maybe not put him at the very top of this. Desi Hutchinson, it's going to be his first season. He's a bit indifferent during the league. We know the potential is there. Evan Cody could be a name. I'm finding it hard to name who I think will definitely. Do you have somebody? I'm still deliberating, but do you have your one?
Yeah, no, despite the fact that what I said about the defenders, and I will stand over that, I think Owen Cody is going to be there or thereabouts to start with Kilkenny, and I think obviously if he's in form, that will definitely tip the balance. But the fact that he's going to be in a forward line with his Ballyhale teammates, TJ and Colin Fennelly, and players that he's worked unbelievably well with at club level, I think there's a fair chance he could make an impact there. I'd say if Adrian Mullen was there, I'd say there's a fair chance to be 4 Ballyhale lads starting in that forward line. And I just think he's the sort of player. Even watched the Ballyhale village game, the county semi-final, and he hit 3 points and he was quiet. But he's the sort of player that can still contribute handsomely enough, even on days when he's quiet, and then days when he is on. He's on, and I'll never forget he just seems to pop around positions to get goals. He just seems to be putting himself into those sort of positions, and he can be a good foil for Colin Fennelly at times. All the focus is on Colin Fennelly, head down, go for goal, and all of a sudden there's a pass out and Owen Cody's there and he's free. So I think he's the sort of player that could make an impact, and yeah, so someone like him, I'd have maybe Aaron Costello, maybe kind of a close second, but I think Owen Cody definitely has the pedigree, and I think a bit more mature now, and he's coming in on brilliant form. They've won, as I said, 2 Club All-Irelands in a row, 3 Kilkenny titles. He'd be absolutely full of confidence after that game against Clare at the weekend, so it's Owen Cody for me.
Yeah, I think Ronan, if I thought Dublin could do really well in this championship and pick up 2 or 3 wins, I might say Ronan Hayes, I might say look even at Donald Burke. I'm looking towards Evan Nyland, but I'm not 100% sure he'll start. I think if he did, he could actually have a really good season. You mentioned Evan Cody, I'd mentioned Diarmuid Ryan because I think he'll start. But again, like Hayes and Burke, I'm not sure that Clare are going to do well enough this year for him to be able to express himself the way he could. I'm actually going to go with Tommy Walsh at Kilkenny, because it's not his first season, But assuming he starts, and that's not guaranteed, but I think the way he's played in the last couple of years, if he's fit and flying, and I think Kilkenny will have a decent season, I think I'd just about give it to him. Like, there's some really good talent there with Tipperary that coming through, but again, I'm not 100% sure if Craig Morgan can break into the back line this year. I think that's going to be hard to do. Dylan Quirk and Jake Morris are vying for the forward line. Brian McGrath. I'm not sure that those guys will get in. So I'm sort of weighing it up and thinking, who can get into their team and actually can actually kind of make good on this, and that's why I'm going to go with Tommy Walsh.
That's why I'd go for. I think those two lads will play a big part of Kilkenny, and I think Kilkenny will go well. So you're kind of banking on Ronan Hayes could play well for Dublin, but Dublin could be out after 2 games potentially, And I don't see them. I just can't see them winning a Leinster semi-final against Kilkenny. And the tip players you're mentioning are very good players and great potential, but how much are they going to feature? So I think those two lads. I don't think those two lads will start for Kilkenny, and I think they have a more experience under their belt than they would have had if it had been a summer campaign. Yeah. So I think that's kind of the exciting thing from a Kilkenny point of view, is to have those guys. They have some of those like best young hopes to watch now, maybe that they hadn't had for a couple of years.
Absolutely. And if anyone thinks that there's another young hope that we've mentioned, or if you disagree with our choices, or whatever your opinion is, let us know. Thanks very much. And by the way, brought to you by 65hurls.com. Get your sticks there. Thanks very much, Michael.
Cheers, Shane.